Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, brothers and sisters. You are talking to Zed on the Real Talk on Radio Ramadan today on 87.7 FM. Hope you've had a great day today. The weather is a little bit better, it's a little bit warmer, and that's what we like to see. A good summer is coming, it's on the way, and most of all, Eid is on the way next week. So those of you who will be asking me this question, as you do always, what day is Eid? Is it Wednesday or is it Thursday? So we shall discuss that throughout the week. And I want you all to engage today. I want you to pick up that phone and call us in the studio on 0116 4822 086. Or you can send a WhatsApp on 077 488 55055. And if you're in another country, don't forget +44. Miss the zero. So people are listening in from all over the world, and I have in the studio with me today my brother Shockat Adam.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to all our listeners. MashaAllah, wonderful to be with you. This usually is probably a record, Zed. I usually speak to you much sooner than this in the month of Ramadan. Alhamdulillah, I've been on this studio several times this month, but I've not had the opportunity to speak with you. So this is a real honor, although delayed.
Well, welcome to the Radio Ramadan. You know, we're only days left now. And the week is a short week. Monday was Easter Monday, and tomorrow is Wednesday, and the week's going to be over.
It's like the whole month has flown by as well, alhamdulillah.
It has, yeah. It's just incredible. And it is a sad month as well, in the sense that while we're all having iftar every day, our brothers and sisters are having nothing whatsoever. They're struggling for water in Palestine.
Yeah, I was just speaking to... talking about sadness, I performed Salat Tarawih in Masjid Salahuddin yesterday, which is in the St. Matthew's area. Absolutely beautiful masajid, if anybody hasn't been. It's usually occupied mostly from our brothers and sisters from the Kurdish community. Absolutely wonderful masajid, and the recitation was beautiful. But outside, I was speaking to some of the musallis, and one of the brothers was from Gaza, a young man in his 20s, and he was visibly very upset. And he just told me that he has lost communication with his parents for the last 3 days in Rafah. And his niece, who is under a month old, hasn't been seen for a good few weeks. And that was the reality of somebody who is living that experience. So as you say, alhamdulillah, we do our iftar. We go perform our tarawih in our wonderful masajids, but it's a very different situation for our brothers and sisters in Palestine.
Well, of course, somebody said to me yesterday or day before that, you've talked about this 3 times, this particular matter. So I said, I've got an avid listener there who's listening to me regular and counting the number of times I'm talking about different subjects. Well, you know that every time you talk about this, it's not enough. It's not enough. You have to continuously keep reminding people that never forget, right? Never, ever forget. And never stop talking about it. The day you stop talking about it, then you are also going to forget about it.
Yeah, the injustice is also, Zed, I think we have to talk about it because the context changes every day.
Every day.
So everything that is happening there has happened in phases. And that has been reflected in this country, is what's happening to them as a subject of what is happening to our Palestinian brothers in this country has been happening in phases as well. And just today, and I'm sure you may touch upon it, and I think it happened last night actually, when international aid workers, including individuals from this country, were massacred.
And what did they do wrong? 4 British citizens, 1 Australian. What did they do wrong? They went there to help kitchen. That's what they were running, is a kitchen.
World Kitchen, yes.
World Kitchen. Now, what they're doing, are they part of the war? Are they part of that?
No.
Are they helping?
They're helping. We've seen that, there's war, and then after war, there's the aftermath, which includes famine and disease.
And starvation, which is a tool of war.
Yeah, famine and famine, disease. And many avenues have tried to address that issue. But unfortunately, now health organizations, charity organizations are now being restricted. I mean, it will be natural for anybody to fear to go into that arena. The bravery we have seen from the hospital doctors in Palestine, the braveries we've seen from the individuals, from the Palestinians, and then the bravery of the people that are external and have nothing to do with that country that has been absolutely phenomenal. So for people to say you're talking about the same thing, I understand where that may be coming from, but look at the sacrifices that people are making across the world for the people of Palestine. And somebody yesterday, good people, paid the ultimate price, whose family will never recover from this. So I think we have a duty in our comfort, in our warmth, in our luxury, to at least remember them to a certain degree, in a certain capacity, because we all know if we do not, as you so perfectly articulated, if we forget, then the rest of the world will forget. And no legacy will be left and no changes will be made. If we do not learn the lessons of history, we'll repeat them over and over again.
Well, of course, I'll always remind all our listeners that when we said never again, did we mean that? From what I have seen in the last 6 months of this conflict, it's dragging on. It's not exactly 6 months, but it feels like 6 months, that this conflict has diluted the never again slogan. Never again was not only for one particular part of humanity. It was for all of us, that never again we should see an atrocity like that.
Unfortunately, we haven't learned that lesson. I mean, we could go back to the Bosnian situation, and we saw what happened
in the 90s.
In the 90s, and we saw the images of starvation and almost camps of people that haven't been eaten, shallow graves of hundreds of men and women.
We have a call, if you can put it through to us.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, it's a false alarm.
False alarm, yeah. So we saw Bosnia, and then once
from our studio, they play these...
they get bored, obviously.
Yeah,
they need more to do. They need more to do. So we were talking about Bosnia. Then after Bosnia, we saw the massacre and the horrific incidences in Rwanda. We forget about that. Was it 3 million people that died? And it was just happening in front of our eyes, and nothing was done to stop it. And even when we look across the world today, there's issues in Sudan, etc. as well. So
you know what my worry is, Brother Shockat? I am worried that this is now giving a precedence to other countries to decimate the ethnic populations in their countries. Like you had recently, not too many years ago, the Rohingya, who were being displaced from where they lived. And this is, it went away quietly.
To the rest of the world, not to them. They're still camped in tents outside Bangladesh and Myanmar.
Yeah, and even Bangladesh was refusing to take them on. So when these atrocities happen, this is the beginning of the next one. This
Absolutely.
is ethnic cleansing of the highest level.
Look, when the world looks upon it and remains silent, then we have to ask ourselves how much guilt is on our hands as well. Because we've seen what is happening in front of our television screens. There was a transcript, an audio transcript of one of our own MPs from Leicestershire talking about potentially that Israeli have committed war crimes. And there was a conversation that they were having on there. And it was alarming for me for many reasons, this conversation. But amongst the most alarming thing was they discussed in this conversation, rightfully so, that these atrocities will not make Israel safe. Okay, these atrocities will not make the United Kingdom safe. So this was a conversation of high-level ministers. But one people that they've completely failed to mention was the Palestinians. It was the other countries won't be safe, we won't be safe because of what's happening there. But there was no discussion of the Palestinian people themselves. And that is the most disturbing thing for me from that whole transcript and the whole conversation, because it almost feels as if their lives don't matter. And you're absolutely right. When we give the green light as a Western so-called civilized country who exports our model of democracy and freedom and rights across the world, and we've got very much to be proud of, but yet we remain silent when we have this performed right in front of our eyes, day in for day out, just short of 6 months, as you said. And there is absolutely no condemnation. Today, on Sky News, the Shadow Foreign Secretary said we will continue our sales of arms to countries like Israel, regardless, blanket. So therefore, we are not learning our lessons. We are not changing anything. We're not changing the narrative. And as they say, if you do not do anything differently, you're going to get the same results. And you're right, we're giving the green light. We will have no moral ground to speak to any other country when they are performing atrocities. because they will point that, well, you remain silent when it was happening here.
Yeah, and there is no solutions. I'm shocked that in 75 years, they don't want a two-state solution, they don't want a one-state solution. They have no desire to stop this killing, to stop the ethnic cleansing, and where the sentiments conveyed to me from all people when I'm out, they're all very, very annoyed, very upset, and powerless to do anything. When 70% of them quoted in our media are against this violence.
71% want an immediate ceasefire. That's
immediate ceasefire. Then others in the government, our 17,000 councillors, our 650 MPs, what percentage do you think have stood up for values, morals, ethnics? What percentage has stood up out of that? They're the people in governance. You and I are not in governance.
Yeah.
Right?
No, we need to make that change, but that's a different story
Now
for another day.
That is, I would say, not even 5%.
Yeah, we had the SNP who were very, very vocal on this matter. So they credit where credit was due, but they were the only ones. And the Scottish Labour Party, to a certain degree, followed suit. But for our government in this country, there was virtually silence. Especially in the beginning, there was absolutely no condemnation, and there was no calling for an immediate ceasefire.
Now, last week, if you watched the Commons and House of Commons, there was one particular MP, I only remember his first name, and he stood up and said, we will have civil war in this country when the Muslim population reached 10%. Now, that frightened me, put me in a mode of fear. And I'm always saying that fear is a tool of rule. Now, that is not very responsible to bring me back memories of Enoch Powell when we came here in 1972, when Enoch Powell made that Rivers of Blood
absolutely.
speech.
Look,
right?
it's
I
just
don't want to
politics of fear,
that.
Zed. You understand that causes division, that causes segregation. But fear is such a powerful tool. So if you put fear into the community, then they can easily put a narrative of us against them and othering the Muslim community. Now let's look at what happened 3 weeks ago. I think it was 3 or 4 weeks ago in 1 week. In 1 week we had the deputy chairman of the Tory party articulating very, very clearly that Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London, is under the control of Islamists with no shred of evidence. No shred of.
No.
And on the same day, if you let me finish, on the same day we had the Suella Braverman saying that parts of this country is under Islamist law. On the same day, you had our former Prime Minister, Liz Truss, entertaining right-wing individuals in the United States of America saying, yes, there's no-go areas and there's Islamists in this country. On the same day, you had the funder for GB News retweeting vile Islamophobia. He wants to purchase the Daily Telegraph. This is all in one day. And there was no sentiments or any objection from our Prime Minister or from our government or from our opposition. They are playing divide and rule because they're playing the politics of fear. And the Muslim community at this moment, amongst other minority communities, but mainly the Muslim community, is the crux of the issue of what they're fearing the rest of the community with. This is going to be bad for everybody.
We're going to move on to that particular subject of segregation and the Muslim community, the Hindu community, the Sikh community. The list is too long. We have diversity like we never saw in 1970s when we came to this country. There were 2 communities here only. Today, we have the A to Z of world diversity here in our city of Leicester. And London is another story. So when everything you've talked about today is gaslighting for division, for segregation, right? When we have this level of irresponsibility in the country by our ministers, our cabinets, our whole governing structure is creating this kind of fear. What do you think is going to happen next?
You're absolutely right.
You're going to have a melting pot or not?
Yeah, absolutely. But they're creating this narrative. This doesn't actually exist. If we look at how successful our city is, yes, we have our issues, but we are successful in our diversity. We are a perfect example of how multiculturalism works. We get on with everybody. I don't like to use the word we tolerate each other, because that just means you barely can stand each other. We actually are engaged with each other on a very, very cellular level in many cases. It is those people that do not wish for that to happen that keep banging on about differences and people are different and they don't want to integrate, which is absolutely untrue. We see the success of our city. Yes, as I say, we've had one or two incidents, but on the whole, we're very, very integrated. And we have to be that change. Otherwise, those that wish to divide us will succeed. So we really need to work hard, look at ourselves, look at our own shortcomings, and make sure we reach out to every community that we know and live in harmony with each other.
Historically, empires were built upon sheer violence, genocide, just cleansing, ethnic cleansing the indigenous population of that country. Top of your head, all of you listening in right now, maybe you can text. Let's give some homework to our listeners right now, because
they're listening.
You got to get interactive. Don't let me tell you all the answers. I ask the question and you force me to answer the question. So I want you to call on 0116 4822 086. And it's a simple one. How many countries where the indigenous population was ethnically cleansed, exterminated, became extinct in this world? Simple one. Now, those of you who don't know, you know what they're going to do. They're going to go on the Google and they're going to check. And they're going to call me back. Or you can send me a WhatsApp on 077 488 55055. You're listening to Real Talk with Zed on Ramadan Radio with our guest today, Shockat Adam. Now, we're going to continue with this issue of ethnic cleansing, of the diversity, of the segregation in our communities, and how what national government ministers will say, what they will do, it affects us all. We had a message this week only, I think today or yesterday, where one of our MPs again was tweeting that there is a serious problem of anti-Semitism, right? Now, do you know what that's all about?
Well, I mean, let's put it in perspective. Anti-Semitism is vile.
Of course it is. Yeah. So is anti-Muslim.
Islamophobia is anti-Muslim.
Now, this is an area of your expertise, because I know that for the last 12 years or so, you have been very active as a volunteer tackling these many, many cases in our community, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely, for the last decade.
Yeah. And you've seen enough cases to somehow it has shaped your life, isn't it?
What it is about hatred, Zed, is there's no hierarchy. A lot of people who are Islamophobic, they just use it as an entry drug. Because they're racist, they're probably anti-Semitic, they're every other phobic going under the sun. But they latch on to the most popular form of hatred at that moment in time. At this moment in time, with my experience, one of the biggest challenges we face is Islamophobia, where we see it in the narrative. Let's just look at how ministers, is that said, in one day can say something about Muslims and have absolutely no repercussions. Absolutely no repercussions. Yet when we see other forms of hatred being dealt with, especially if you read the Ford report that was into the Labour Party, when they said that certain forms of hatred were treated at a much higher level than other forms of hatred, especially racism and Islamophobia. There were over 100 cases of Islamophobia in the Labour Party before the next general election. There was over 100 cases of Islamophobia in the Tory Party. We tried to get these pieces of evidence to all the media outlets, and nobody picked it up. Channel 4 showed a little bit of interest, but then they dropped the story at the last minute. The theme at the time was anti-Semitism, and as I repeat again, anti-Semitism is vile, and if it is, it should be rooted out from every form of civilization that we know. But when it came to Islamophobia, there was blank silence. Nobody was willing to listen, and that is the reason, because we do not tell our story. We do not tell our story of how this impacts us, how Islamophobia is real, how it affects people on the streets, from our sisters who are too scared to walk out in certain areas in the country. We're not talking about Leicester, but in certain other areas, the hijabs get pulled off, little children getting bullied at school for being Muslims, people not getting jobs because of Muslim names, people not getting promotion because of Muslim names, people being attacked on the streets because of Muslim names. And we are open play free play in the media. It appears as an opinion piece. You can say whatever you like about the Muslim community and you will get away with it, whether you're a minister or whether you're a journalist. When Boris Johnson wanted to launch his parliamentary prime ministerial candidacy, he first attacked Muslim women who wore niqab. Now, whatever your opinions are of whatever on niqabs, a woman can wear whatever she likes. And to call them letterboxes and call them bank robbers, can you imagine that statement being made about any other religion?
By a leader.
By a leader. And he used that as a launch pad. And he got away with it. And he still hasn't apologized for it.
Now, you're talking about Islamophobia, which is an ongoing conversation. We'll never let this go. As we are speaking now, attacks are rising. Last week, there was a 13-year-old who walked out of his mosque in London and he was attacked. So we have many cases. Out of 20 cases reported and 20 cases not reported, only one ever gets highlighted.
And the recording sometimes is actually not recorded correctly as Islamophobic. They record it as a race crime or a hate crime, but not a religiously motivated hate crime. So reporting is very poor as well. When the reporting is better, even then I would say only 50% we're getting the figures for.
Now, when you're talking about anti-Semitism, or you're talking about anti-Islam, or you're talking about whichever race you want to class as anti, you are then inciting racism. Your racism, your fascism, your extremism, it all comes into one pot. And it is a huge problem to the next generation. Now, when I've been meeting a lot of people, I don't see that Generation Z, they don't want this. And Generation X, they had different dynamics. But these are the two generations who are tomorrow's future of this country and of other countries in the world. Now, we, as responsible citizens, if we don't set them an example, we are to blame for tomorrow's
Absolutely.
problem.
We're kicking the can down the road. Look, we're, alhamdulillah, very fortunate to live in a city like Leicester, where these things are not overtly manifested. But that doesn't mean they're not happening, and they're happening at every single level. And if we do not address this issue, just pick up your newspapers. Just listen to what ministers, elected representatives and journalists who are amongst the most powerful people in this country are saying. The person that is about to purchase the Daily Telegraph, he owns a newspaper, owns a GB News. It's open season retweeting vile Islamophobic sentiments with no repercussions. And let's look at racism. One of the biggest donors to the Tory party, if not the biggest donor to the Tory party, makes a vile statement to a political figurehead who happens to be a black lady, who, he actually says that looking at her makes him want to hate all black people and wants to shoot her.
She should be shot. Yeah.
And yet, what are the repercussions?
Now, out of 650 MPs, again, we are playing the percentages here. How many do you think absolutely went against him?
It was shocking to hear people in his own party that he supports of African origins, not condemning.
Or even Asian.
Condemn him. I know 10 million pounds can buy you a lot.
It was actually 15 million.
In the end, it was 15 million. Yes,
yeah.
That was a figure that was being debated.
This is what you said 3 years ago, 4 years ago, becomes prevalent today. It becomes prevalent today. So don't ever believe that your words spoken yesterday will not come back to haunt you today. What you said yesterday will today come at you.
Yeah.
And tomorrow, you'll be in even more of a mess.
Yeah, I mean, when these things are said, I mean, let's look at what the gentleman the individual who has presented the new definition of extremism, the things he said are blatantly homophobic in the past, recorded in his days. What he said about people in the empire or African origins, which have been, there's voice recordings of what he has said in the past. When he now was asked about what they should do about a man who is, so you got to understand, he has given a new definition of extremism. Then when he was asked that an individual that has donated £15 million to your party is advocating or saying that he wants to shoot a black woman, you know what he replied? I think we should exercise Christian forgiveness.
Exactly.
So
now,
he wants to exercise Christian forgiveness when it suits him.
That is a point of defense, right? And I'm just shocked that out of 650 MPs, how many came out and condemned that statement? And do you think that even a thought of returning that £15 million?
No, I think they won't be able to, because they won't have a party to stand on.
Our party does not want to be associated with this gentleman.
No, but I think it's going
so
back
money is a tool of rule. Fear is a tool of rule.
It is.
Right?
But the scary thing is, then you keep alluding to it, Zed, and you're absolutely right. Regardless of which spectrum you're on, there was no vocal condemnation, there was no getting together, there was no uproar, and it came in the news and it left. Now, the other things would have lasted for weeks and weeks and weeks until they got their man or woman to leave. This happened. We're sorry, he doesn't really mean it. We've taken the money, let's move on. There's nothing to see here. How are we allowing this to happen? Because we're too busy with every other thing.
Now, of course, I want to relate this back to a scenario I'm going to put to you. We have a case of domestic violence. Yes? A partner is beating up his wife regularly, and he will say, I'm sorry, I won't do it again. Now I'm going to compare that with what goes on with us, the public. We get continuously beaten up, right? And yet we're still going back for more. Yeah.
It's like an abusive relationship. We seem to love them, but they don't seem to love us that much back.
When all the people in our governance, and we keep continuing to go after them, even after they do this collectively. So all in this country, for those of you who don't know, who have come in this country from another part of the world, the governance here works through a structure, whether you are this party or that party, and the policies are made at the top. The rest have to follow. And also the followers, the sheep, you want to call them, whatever you wish to call them, they follow as well. But how are we going to have time for change if we, the electorate, the public, don't wake up and we do not express our own view as to what is your moral value, where's your humanity? If we stay asleep, then one person just told me before we entered the studio, we deserve what we get because we are the ones who put them there.
Yeah, we deserve the leaders we get, that's for sure. There's an Islamic principle to that as well. But we have to be the change we want to see. There is a system here. It's not by any means perfect, but there is a system. And we can make a change to that system, however difficult it may be. Look, this is an often quote that many people who know me hear me say, that the best time to plant a tree was 25 years ago. To enjoy its fruit, to enjoy its shade, to enjoy its beauty, to enjoy its color, we should have planted it 25 years ago. But the next best time is today. Otherwise, our children will be still demonstrating on the streets in the cold, in the wet, in the wind, still moaning about lack of opportunities because of their faith or their color or their name. We have to be the people that plant that tree now. We have to make the changes we want to see. And there's many, many ways that we can do it. Anybody can sit here and have hours and hours of programs of what's wrong and complain. But what we need to do is be proactive and see what we can change. The political system is one way. Engaging in the media is the other way. Finance is the other way. We have to put our money where it benefits the community, where it benefits mankind. And there's ways to do it. We've got templates. We can just now need to spend the money in the right situations, in the right institutions. There is more. There is so much more. And I think at this tragedy that is unfolding in Gaza has showed that if we do not have power in think tanks, in lobbies, in the media, in the political spectrum, in where businesses can say, look, if we do not do what we want, we will pull this funding. So that's what it makes a difference. You
said earlier on the word tolerate. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to elaborate upon that to say to all the people listening in right now, don't sit back. Don't sit back. Don't just say, oh, I have to tolerate this. No, you don't have to do that. You always stay with your moral values. Your deen instructs you to do that. Your humanity is of paramount importance, not only for yourself, but for your brothers and sisters throughout the world.
Absolutely. What it is that people think, what can I change? As a singular. They just think that there's nothing I can do. But it's the power of one is the most powerful tool out there. You know, there was a saying by Mother Teresa that if everybody swept the front of their house, the world would be very, very clean. So everybody has to take that responsibility. Everybody has to be that change. One person, we've seen it throughout history, through the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, can make that change. But you have to be committed, have the conviction of, as you say, the moral convictions that we have. Otherwise, we're all guilty. And the person that you spoke to beforehand is absolutely right. We deserve it then. If we're not going to be the change, anybody can complain. We can sit in our mosque corners, we can sit on our family dining tables and bemoan the situation of the world. We have to be that change. We have to make that change. And that change is available. It can take many different shapes and forms, not just one way, but we collectively can make a change for the better.
And this is all of you listening in right now. No doubt you also have an opinion, so share it with us and we can work together. And only when we work together, we are united, we can go forward and we will get listened to. Otherwise, we will just become part of a system following each other like sheep. And this is what I want to amplify to all of you listening in. We say, wake up, dress up, and show up on time.
MashaAllah.
That was not my quote. That was a quote by Brother Salim. He's in Mecca, Medina at the moment, and he's doing some wonderful work. He's got a charity called My Malawi, and he's doing some wonderful work. So I'm going to give him a very good plug here. Brother Salim, if you're listening in, your brother Zed here is praying for you.
MashaAllah.
Right? And he's praying for us as well in Medina. So those of you who know Brother Salim from the My Malawi charity, then you will all be supporting that charity as much as you can do. And of course, they don't come here for the Saturday and Sunday fundraising, but they are doing a wonderful job in Malawi. Now, of course, you know, we have a huge community from Malawi.
I'm from Malawi.
Yeah,
I
you're
was
from
born
Malawi.
in Malawi, yes.
Yeah, and you will know a lot of people here in our city from Malawi, right? And they predominantly they come from a town in Malawi called Limbi.
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
There's a town called Limbi, absolutely.
Yeah, there's another one. Give us some names
Blantyre,
now.
Longway.
Longway. These are the three prominent ones.
Mangochi, yeah.
Mangochi, right? And even there are surnames here, Mangochi.
Yeah, that's
right?
because that's where they're from.
And I've always asked this one Mangochi, tell me about your surname, because your surname's not from India. But, you know, this is interesting. When I learnt what you just told me, I was quite astonished.
Yeah.
How many of you listening in right now knew that Mangochi in Malawi is also a surname in India? How many people? So perhaps it was named after one Mangochi.
Possibly.
In Malawi. So that migration came to this country in the late 70s and the early 80s, correct?
Mid-70s to mid-80s.
Mid-70s, yeah. So that 10-year period, what year did you come here?
1976.
76, you just came in. Now, we had a 4-year head start on you because we came here in 72. Then you have many communities here who came here in 1965 onwards. But people think that there were no Asians here in 1917. Did you know that?
Yeah, there was. We know of one.
We know of one grandfather
who
was here. Then his father.
But we know of many Asians here in the 1800s as well that came within the empire.
Yeah. So often when I'm debating with some right wing, and they say my country, and I said, your country, who's taking your country away from you? Which country are you talking about? Now, when we talk about British culture, yes, I would like all of you listening in right now to define to me what is British culture. Certainly, British culture is not about killing people. It's not about ethnic cleansing. It's some of the horrific things we've seen on the social media. Every day you're pounded with that. So is this information relative? Should we be kept informed with this? Because governments are trying to shut down this information. Information blackout, right? So that this can continue with no opposition. Right now,
either that or selective information.
Everything is being done right now to curb information. We are here for a month only, and it's a very sad time for all of us in the country when I've seen so many different diversities standing there in the rain, as you said earlier on, and they're all protesting. Now, they are not from that region. They are from the region called humanity.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
They speak the language of humanity, and they are coming out because they are also incensed with what's going on.
This is a humanitarian catastrophe, and we need to be very careful when we discuss this. This is not just a Muslim issue, it's a worldwide humanitarian issue.
No, not at all.
And if you do, as you say, go to the streets of London at protests, every single protest, I think that I've spoken to people, that it changes in terms of how diverse it is. The latest one was more diverse than the first one, because people are opening their eyes and seeing what is actually happening. And a quick point here, Zed, as well, is that what people are doing, those that you were alluding to that want to divide us, are weaponizing what is happening in the Middle East to divide communities in this country. And they're utilizing it and they're using it for their benefit. Now, as a Muslim, one of the things that really, really grates a majority of the Muslim communities when an activity happens across the globe with nothing to do with us in this country, and then we're asked to condemn it as if we had something to do with that atrocity. Now, we will condemn it on the basis of humanity, with sad of anybody dying, but do not ask me to condemn it because I was somehow related to it, because the people who purported those crimes, usually due to geopolitical reasons, happen to be from the same faith. So similarly, what happens in Israel has got nothing to do with the people of Jewish community. They have absolutely no responsibility for that. But what those that wish to divide us want to use this to weaponize that. So therefore, if you speak out against the state of Israel, somehow you are talking out against Jewish people, which is absolutely wrong, because this has got nothing to do with the Jewish faith at all. It's a state that is committing this crime, and therefore do not weaponize that to divide communities here for your gain. And that is very important, because we must not bring that here. It does not mean that we should break out with any faith or any community because of what's happening in those countries.
Now,
and that will be allowing those that want to divide us to win.
I'm going to share with all of you listeners that when a 24-year-old, 22-year-old, when they're fueled with so much hatred and they come out and they openly say that we want to kill them all, we want to exterminate them, they don't deserve it, they're animals, right? It really puts a fear down my spine. Why? Because I'm thinking, what kind of garbage were they indoctrinated with when they were 6 years old, when they were 5 years old, when they were 4 years old? A 24-year-old does not automatically become like that overnight. It's a period of indoctrination, as if that was his way of life, and he's now letting off steam. Now, not just one person, but a whole community who were there on record, on documentary, stopping the trucks going through with the assistance of military and the police. This is very, very frightening. You saw that documentary by Jeffrey?
Yeah, I saw.
Lafrida?
Yeah, but what I did see is that in terms of age, it's in the Knesset. The Minister of Culture in Israel has talked about how the destruction of Gaza is the ambition and the goal. So it's across the spectrum. It's almost like it's not a secret. It's not hidden meetings. This is an open claim by some people in the Knesset against the people of Palestine, and that is what is astounding. That this is not. You don't have to go to social media. This is on national television. A
message I want to read out to you is one of the listeners is saying that he's saying, Zed, why don't you tell all our counselors to make a noise and do something about this? Now, how can I answer that question? I'm not a counselor. I'm not in governance. I'm a presenter here at Radio Ramadan. So that's not for me to make it happen. I can't do that. But all I can do is appeal to everyone out there. Everyone out there, I'm appealing to their humanity. Put your pen down, as they say, and said, enough is enough. No more. No more killing, no more violence. We've had enough. Now, imagine, how many are we in this city? Almost 400,000. Then we have the county, which is almost 600,000 or more. Are you aware?
Yeah. But I just thought it was over 500,000, yeah.
In the county?
Altogether, yeah?
No. City is around 390, 400. We can check that out if you don't believe me. All right? I can give you the exact figure right down to the decimal point. And if all of us come together and we said no more, we're not having it anymore, that is when we make a difference, right? Otherwise, if there's only pockets of people who tag along, then it ain't going to happen. I even heard one of the persons in governance say that, oh, it'll all be over in 3 months. Everybody will forget about it. I cannot forget about that, the visions of all that. And I'm like thinking, can you imagine what it was like at the time of the Holocaust when human beings were directed into gas chambers, their heads were shaven, they were absolutely starved. They were almost dead before they entered that gas chamber, right? Those images have not left my head. Have you seen those images?
Of course, we all have, yes.
Yeah. And
once seen, never forgotten.
And that's why we say never again. But this is a repetition of that. Some of the images I'm looking at, and I want us all to make dua and all of us come together on this, that we don't want killing anywhere. This will set the precedent for the next country who will do the same and they'll get away with it. Now, if you have all the weapons, does that mean that you're going to bully, harass, occupy, destroy another nation?
No, what we have to do from this country is set clear guidelines that we want an immediate ceasefire. And what we should have is a moral ground to stop sending arms to any country that is committing atrocities against minorities, against their people, against any other people. I think as a country, we must have that.
What makes me absolutely horrified is when the ICJ says, we're going to give you 30 more days. In 30 days, do you know how many people are going to get killed?
Every hour. Every
right?
hour people are dying.
The one who's doing the killing is going to say, kill as many as you can in 30 days. We have 30 days. Do it now. Do it now. Decimate that hospital. 300 people were completely decimated. So all of us, brothers and sisters, whatever happens, it affects us all here in our city, our children. This is not the future we want them to even know about or experience. These children will be affected by it in this country. And that's not what we want. We want peace. We want a peaceful, loving, secure society. We don't have security.
Well, I think that was the main premise of that discussion I was telling you about earlier, because they think that because of what's happening in the Middle East, it's going to raise threats all across the world. Because we live in a global village now, and we can't just expect to sit here and see those atrocities happen and feel that nothing will happen in return. So we all have a duty. We all have a moral duty. We have a duty to our children, and we have a duty to our future. We have to be on the right side of history, and we all agree, and I think everybody listening to this will agree as well. It's just, how do we do it? Firstly, we do not forget, and we make changes. We make changes to those that are in charge of us. We make sure we go to areas, we narrate the stories, because, there's that very famous saying, African proverb, is that, until the lion doesn't have a storyteller, the hunter will always be glorified. So we have to start telling our stories as well. We have to ensure those that stood to represent us, they should be told, and they should be left with no uncertainty that their silence will not be forgotten.
So, brothers and sisters, we are coming to the end of the program now, and just want to emphasize that throughout the month we are talking about integration. We are talking about all communities to come together and make that difference. You, the listener, all of you in public life, every one of us has a responsibility to step up, as we said earlier on, and make a difference. So, Brother Shockat, if you would like to say a last word.
Absolutely.
Got 30 seconds.
Please continue the good fight. Do not forget anybody that is suffering across the world, and don't feel you can't do anything. We all have it in us to make a change, however small, and together we will make the change we want to see. So please keep praying, and please keep supporting in any avenue that you can for the better future for everyone, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair, and this is Zed from the Real Talk program with Brother Shockat today. Shockat Adam, thank you for coming today, and Jazakallah khair. We shall join you tomorrow, and we shall be there Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. The Real Talk. Jazakallah khair.